What's up, guys, and welcome to the very first episode of Tenacious Tuesday. And today we're going to talk about Stringjoy. Stringjoy is, in case you haven't heard of them, an awesome American-made string company right down in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm good friends with Scott, who started the company back in 2014, and just like Copper Sound, has grown exponentially in the last 5-6 years. If you know a lot about strings, you probably know that there are few companies that make their own in-house, and Stringjoy, believe it or not, is one of them. You can actually see tons of videos, and I'll try and link some of them down below, of Scott's company making strings in-house and him actually walking through the factory and talking about the process. It's very interesting, and it was a blast talking to him today. And so yeah, I'll get right into the interview. I want you guys to know that Tenacious Tuesdays are basically going to be me interviewing other people who have made it in the industry and their thoughts on making it as an artist. And when I say the industry, I don't just mean the music industry, I mean the arts. And Scott has some amazing things to say, so stick around and enjoy this week's first episode of Tenacious Tuesday. You are a musician, right?
I am. Less so, these days I probably I'm much more of an entrepreneur than a musician, though there was a time that I was much more on that side, if that makes sense.
How old were you when you first started getting into music?
Yeah. So it would have been it was either fourth or fifth grade. So my parents got guitars for my sister and myself. I have an older sister, for Christmas, and it was unprompted. I did not ask for it. They got her lessons, and they just gave me a guitar because that's kind of always been my family's attitude. They're Scott will figure it out. And so I kind of did. I tried to. What was really weird that I remember is because I was just teaching myself at home, and this is pre-internet. I had a chord book, so I learned all these chords and all that. But what I didn't know, and this is the silliest thing, I didn't know that you were supposed to push down behind the frets. I understood the concept of fretting, but I thought you were just supposed to hold it down on top of the fret.
Yeah.
Which was really hard. Everything was always buzzing, and it just wasn't quite right. But I spent a month or two trying to learn the guitar like that. Pressing down really hard and trying to get these chords to sound okay. And then the moment it clicked that I was doing it wrong, and I started fretting behind the fret, I was like, oh, I know so much, because I was making it harder than on myself the whole time. And it just clicked overnight. And then I went to take guitar lessons and all that. And what I remember was I was a big basketball playing kid growing up. And I was awful at basketball when I started, but I worked really hard. That's where I really learned. I spent a summer shooting jump shots for 12 hours a day. And I really learned kind of the value of hard work like that. But what was funny to me with guitar is it was the first thing like that, outside of academics, that I was oh, I'm kind of gifted at this. It just came really easily to me. And I felt like it was just I was born to do this kind of right away. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning of everything.
Well, that's why I love that question, because everybody's journey is so different. But all kind of the same, because we all kind of have the same thing. That.
Yeah, it's funny. It's we're like the people that made it west in on the Oregon Trail or something. It's a lot of people start guitar, but only a small percentage of them stick with it. I mean, same with any instrument, right?
Yeah.
So there's always some weird commonalities amongst the people that actually made it over the hump and kept with it for a longer period of time.
Yeah, and that brings me to question number 2, which is the proverbial switch. When did you decide to just flip the switch and be this is going to be my life?
Oh man, you mean
it could be when you started.
There's a few switches, right?
I know, yeah. It could be when you started Stringjoy, but it could also be when you were just you know what, this is all I got. I got to make this work somehow.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, because something, I remember having that feeling of being I'm gifted at this and I should really work hard at this. And that was probably the first switch was just kind of realizing oh, I'm good at this. I should keep going and see if I can get even better. But it's hard for me to remember when it became so clear to me that music was kind of everything. I think I've always had that even before guitar, though. I remember getting a cassette tape of Diana Ross and the Supremes when I was 5, because I was really into Motown stuff. And just I don't know, I listened to music hours and hours and hours every day as a kid. So I think maybe if it wasn't guitar, it would have been drums or something else. I think that music has just been such a a core part of my life, my whole life. I've never really done anything professionally outside of music, unless it was like a restaurant gig or something. Like I was either working at record labels or then working in artist management and then doing this. So it's kind of all I've ever known.
Were you ever told by like family members, like you have to have a backup plan, you have to have a real job lined up, real job lined up?
It's a good question. Like I said with my family, where they were like, he'll figure it out on his own. That's kind of always been their attitude towards me. So I always wanted to do music, and they just encouraged that, as much as they possibly could. I was good in school too, so it wasn't like, I was like, this is all I give it about, right? But in college, I spent a lot of time like with this existential angst of like, what do I do? I was working in record labels on the side, but like, I felt like maybe I could do anything. I was like, do I want to be a historian, or do I want to, what do I want to try? And I spent a few years kind of fiddling with that and working in the music business. And then eventually when I started Stringjoy, I remember like calling my parents and being like, guys, like I found it. Like this is doing entrepreneurship's amazing. This is what I want to do. And they were like the least surprised ever. I expected them to be like, oh, wow. But they were like, yeah, we've always known that's what you're going to do. I was like, well, what? I spent years being like, what the hell do I do? And they're like, well, we knew you'd figure it out. Because I was like kind of a hustler of a kid. Like when I needed money, I would always go to the Goodwill and buy any like name brand, polo shirts or whatever the heck I could find and flip them on eBay. And I was always like meeting with people on Craigslist to buy guitar gear and then flip it online as well. So I've kind of always been a hustler like that. And I guess to them, they were just like, well, obviously he's going to do that.
Yeah.
But I was like, you could have told me that that's what I was going to do.
You're like, I was worried for a minute.
Yeah, for a couple of years of a minute.
Yeah. What were some of the things you've used in the past to push off of other jobs, like for example, or things like that? Like has anyone ever like commissioned you to do like, hey, could you do this for me, or could you figure this out? And you use figuring that out to like open up a new avenue for yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, gosh, yeah. There's so many things like that, right? Like everything you learn for a seemingly completely unrelated reason, like plays in. One that I can think of is when I was on kind of the tail end of my artist management career, I started a blog called 1 Week Without. And I was kind of into self-improvement stuff at the time. And the concept was I would like take a week to fast from whatever, whether it was like television or eating meat or hot showers or whatever. It was all sorts of different stuff. And I would like blog about it and write about it. And in doing that, I learned all about how to use WordPress and build websites and SEO and just a lot of general like internet marketery stuff, because I was trying to push the blog wherever I could. And that never really materialized in a huge way. It was a fun little project. But once I had the idea for Stringjoy, I was like, oh, I know all the stuff already.
Yeah.
And it was a very odd outside way that I came to kind of learn that, but it came in a lot of handy in a very, very different way.
Yeah, that's exactly why I came up with that question, because pretty much the same story. WordPress,
yeah.
Had to figure it out. Now I know it.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I wonder like, these days, my life, like because Stringjoy is such a thing that requires so much of my time, I don't get as many opportunities to do stuff like that, like weirdo projects that kind of pay off in a different way. And I wonder if I'm missing out in some way, though. I guess if I have something post Stringjoy, there's so many things I know about running a business and starting a business and growing one from this. So we're always learning. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, exactly. Advice that you would give an artist who thinks they have to keep their real job if they kind of needed a little bit of like a push. And this is a hard question because a lot of people are like, hey, don't screw with someone else's life.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh man, I could unload on that. And this might not even be what you're expecting exactly, but I actually like strongly disagree with kind of how we view art and career and cross them in America. I think like America, we kind of view everything as capitalist, whether we think about it or not. So like, if you're an athlete, that means like you're doing this as a job. You get paid money. You are hired to be an athlete, and that means you're a real athlete. If you're not that, then you just I play soccer with my friends. There's no middle ground there. Like you do it to make money and earn a living, or it's just a thing you kind of do. I think we take that same perspective to like writing or painting or making music or anything. We really kind of view it like your first question to anybody when they're like, yeah, I'm a painter. You're like, is that your full-time job? Because we're like trying to establish like, are you Is this your trade? And I understand why we do that, but I think that we overemphasize making all of your money off of a thing with being real. You don't feel like you're a real musician if you're also a nurse or whatever. But I think you are. I don't see that distinction. Franz Kafka was a lawyer his whole life and wrote on the side he hated being a lawyer, but he still was one. And there's a lot of cases like that looking back through history of like art is a thing that everyone should do. Now, the reason that I don't like this perspective that we have is because I think more people should be doing all sorts of art. Like it's a thing everyone should do. You know, you sure, you've got a job, you're a doctor or whatever, but like you should write poetry if that's what you want to do on the side. It's not like you shouldn't do it if you can't make a career out of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like it's any less real, the poetry you write, just because you have a regular job. So that's a big angle of mine, which is kind of an aside here.
No, but that's great, because that's exactly why I'm doing this whole YouTube channel. It's like, it's really about like following your dreams. Last question, is being a pro exactly the way you envisioned it?
I mean, for one, I wish that I was as good of a guitar player as I was when I was like 18 or 19. Now that I'm like playing guitar on the internet and people are giving a crap about what I play, because I'm definitely not like technically as good. I stopped trying to, you know, become a really great technical guitarist a long time ago and just started doing what I like to do, you know, in bands and stuff. So I really wish I had those chops that I used to have now that it's a lot more public. But yeah, I mean, it's so different, right? I thought I would be touring the world as a musician. I personally am like super glad it turned out the way that it turned out. I've got a lot of friends now that are doing the life that I kind of hoped that I had, that are on those tours, and they have a lot of fun. There's also a lot about it that now that I'm like a 30-year-old man, I'm like, I don't want to live on a van and, you know,
exactly.
like have to use the bathroom in gas stations every time. So thirdly, when it comes to entrepreneurship, yeah, that especially of late has been such an interesting thing for me, because I think I'm more the entrepreneur that really likes to like come up with an idea, execute it out of nowhere, prove that there's a market for it, and like really kind of dial in the first, you know, $1 million or $2 million of growth or whatever. Now my job is like morphing a lot more to managing a lot of people, which frankly I don't like as much. I definitely like would rather be kind of a free agent, just working on my own projects than answering a bunch of questions and coordinating a lot of people. So that's requiring some learning. I might love it in a few years, or I might find out that, like, you know, the place on the entrepreneurship journey that I make the most sense is starting early stage companies and then moving them on to somebody who likes to use a lot of checklists and stuff and manage a larger organization. So that's all been different. But I mean, what I love about what I do is like, I'm always having to learn new things. I'm always finding new things I'm bad at that I've never had to be good at before, and mastering those obstacles or not, or hiring somebody that's really great at those things. It's always so dynamic. There's always problems to solve. And for my brain, I'm super neurotic. I would go crazy if I didn't have something to focus all those energies on.
Yeah. So thanks, folks. That was Tenacious Tuesday. Scott, what a guy. Incredible dude. I respect him immensely. I love working with him when I get a chance to. And I'm very thankful that he was kind enough to send some stuff for you guys to win this week, just by hanging out on the channel. There's really no like process. This isn't like a run giveaway and whatnot, like a structured giveaway. It's really just interactive people on the channel I will send free stuff to. Anyway, thanks for sticking around, and I will see you guys tomorrow for Work Wednesday, where I talk about more stuff involving Stringjoy and business in general. It's a business channel. Boring. Just kidding.